Hello, everyone. We had another question from Piera, and she was asking about powers of I. And this is from section 1.3, and this was actually on your first quiz, probably. So, with the powers of I, we have four that are kind of fundamental, right? So, the original I is just the square root of -1. That's literally what we started off with in 1.3. Now, when you square this I, right, if you look here, if I were to square this term here, the exponent and the radical would cancel, and I would just be left with -1. So let me erase all of that real quick. So again, if I squared I, or if I squared the square root of -1, I'm just going to be left with -1, right? Now, I cubed is going to be I, so the square root of -1, times I squared, which is -1. So I cubed should be negative square root of -1, or you can write it as -I. All right. Then finally we have I to the fourth, and this will complete the cycle. I to the fourth is pretty much just I squared times I squared. So -1 times -1 would be +1. All right. So a student actually taught me this a few years ago, and she asked me, she's like, well, I figured out I could just count up through these in order to get to the different powers. So let's say this was I to the positive fifth power, then you'd be able to just kind of count up. You'd be able to say 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 should be here back at 1. Or if you were going to 7, it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, then that would be equivalent to I to the third power. Unfortunately for us, this problem actually contains a negative exponent, so we're not going to be able to use the sort of counting up strategy that I just showed you. But we will be able to use I to the fourth power over and over until we're able to modify this negative exponent and get something that is positive. All right, so because I to the fourth is equal to 1, we're able to multiply this I to the negative fifth power by I to the fourth as many times as we would like to, because we're really only multiplying it by 1. All right, so let's go ahead and do that real quick. I have I to the negative fifth power, and I'm going to multiply it by I to the fourth power until the corresponding exponent is positive. So with this first one, when you multiply like bases, you add the exponent. So -5 plus 4, it's still going to be -1. So we haven't multiplied enough, so we need to multiply this again by I to the fourth power. -1 plus 4 is going to be 3. And I to the third power reduces down to -I. I hope this helps. Peace.